How's it going, everyone? My name is Goober. I'm from factionfiles.com. Today we're going to be talking about goals in Red Faction level design, specifically single-player Red Faction level design using the Red Faction level editor. And before we dive right into goals, which are effectively variables, I just wanted to talk about the event engine itself, because having a basic understanding of this is really going to help you understand goals. So Red Faction's events are used for basically any scripted sequences in the game. So just expanding out the events thing here, we got everything from AI actions, look at, set friendliness, play animation, sound an alarm, black out the player, make stuff invulnerable, switch model, teleport, all this kind of stuff. Basically any type of scripting sequence or scripted sequence in the editor is going to be handled with events. Now the event system is fairly rudimentary compared to modern engines like Unreal, Unity, that sort of thing, but it is still extremely powerful. And if you know how to use it, or you know some stuff about it, you can definitely leverage it to make some pretty cool stuff in your single player levels and campaigns. So at a very basic level, let's just make a delay event, and what do you want to do? We're going to talk about goals in a second. I'm just going to make an explode event just to kind of show you the basics of how this is going to work. I'm not going to test this, but in essence, the way that events work is they receive either an on pulse or an off pulse, or an on response or an off response. Either a positive or a negative. You can think of it that way. It's probably easier. And positive is the default. So if I just were to have a trigger door here, and I were to control select my delay event here, press the K key, you can see when I link them, there is now an arrow going from the trigger to the delay. Same thing, delay to explode, press K key, there is now an arrow going from the trigger to the delay event, from the delay event to the explode event. Now, if we were to play this in game and customize the settings in the explode event, which I don't want to do right now, when this trigger is activated, it will send an on response to the delay. The delay will, after the number that's specified in delay properties, which at the moment is nothing, it will then forward that on response, or that positive pulse, through to the delay event, or through to the explosion event rather, which is going to cause an explosion. There is also an off response. So, and we're going to talk about this a bit more once you get the goals, but an off response can be triggered in a couple of ways, but the easiest way and the most self-explanatory way is with the invert event up here in catalysts. So if I instead select a trigger door, select my invert, press K, invert delay, press K, now the way that this is going to work is my trigger is going to send an on response or a positive pulse to my invert event, which is going to invert that, turn it into an off response or a negative pulse, forward that to the delay, which will then forward that negative pulse to the explode event. Certain events have things that are different based on if it's an on response or an off response. Explode doesn't, so it's probably a bad example, but anyway, you get the idea. Now let's talk about goals. So goals are, in essence, and I'm just going to make a room here so that we can test out. Goals are, in essence, variables in the engine. Integer variables, to be exact, if you're familiar with any type of scripting or programming. And they can be used in Red Faction for primarily for tracking things between level loads. So if you wanted to, for example, have you have the first level of your campaign and there's a light that you can blow up. If that light blows up, you set a variable to 1. And then in the 8th level of your campaign, you have some sequence that only happens if you blow up that light back in level 1. You can't normally do that just with a trigger because you obviously can't link a trigger in one map to something that's in another map. But you can do this with goals. Again, it's just a variable. You can increment a variable, you can decrement a variable. And we're going to do that now in a second. And then you can check it later on, either in the same level or in a future level if you set a flag that I'm going to show you now in a second. So the goals system at its very core is extremely simple. It comes down to these 3 events: goal set, goal create, goal check. Very first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to have a goal create event. Go to the properties on the goal create event. The script name for the goal create event is basically the goal create event is declaring our variable. So the script name is going to be the name of our variable. So I'm just going to set that to test goal 1. Start count, delay is however long it's going to be delayed before this triggers, but presumably you want to declare it at the start of the level, so I'm just going to keep that to 0. Start count is going to be the initial value of the goal when it is created. Ordinarily, you'll keep this at 0. If you have a specific reason to raise it, go ahead, but normally you're going to want to keep this at 0. And persistent here is what I was talking about a second ago, and it even says it here. If persistent is checked, it is going to save the value of this goal that this goal create event applies to, as well as the name of the goal in your save game file in perpetuity. So this is what, I was talking about a second ago. You could do something in the first level, set a goal, have it persist, and then it's going to be saved in your save game file in perpetuity. So as long as you are playing off of that save game file or a future save game file that's made from that save game file, that goal and the value of that goal is going to be available for you to use. If you don't tick this box, it's only going to be available in the current level. Now, you can still use it for tracking things between quick save, quick loads within a single level, but you can't use it for future levels. So if you set something in level 1 and this is not ticked, you will not be able to check that value in level 8. You will, however, be able to check that value later in level 1. So basically just use this based on your specific use case. And you'll want to be conscious of not hitting persistent if you don't need it to persist, because there is a limit of that. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. I think it's 63. I'm not 100% sure. But there are a limit to the amount of persistent goals that can be saved in a save game file. So only use this if that is necessary. Anyway, now I hit OK. We have a goal create event where the script name is test goal 1, which again is declaring the name of my variable, integer variable, as I said before, with a start count of 0. Not persistent because it's not necessary for our current use case. So now we have declared our goal. Now, before we go through setting that goal, I'm just going to set something up over here that we're going to use as a test once we script our variable so that we can confirm that it's working. I'm just going to make a play vclip event. I'm going to set this to tribeam hit, which is just like a little green like plasma explosion, just something that's going to be obvious whether it's working or not. Now the goal create is for declaring the variable. Goal set is for changing the variable. Goal check is for checking if the variable is something and then doing something if it is. So I'm just going to set up my goal check first. So the way goal check works is you set the goal to check, which is the variable name here, so that's goal test 1, and then it has a minimum count value. This is going to be basically whatever my goal is set to. If it is at least this is going to forward my pulse. I'm just going to set this to 1 for our test, and I'll explain why in a second. And I'll set a delay over here just so I have something to link to. Let's do 0.5 seconds. So again, select delay, control select goal check, K, select goal check, control select play vclip, press K again. Now you can see the arrows. Like we were talking about a second ago with the on responses, this delay, when it receives a pulse from a trigger, which we'll make in a sec, doesn't exist yet, it's going to send that on pulse to the goal check. The goal check is essentially a gate. It's going to go through its properties, this goal to check, it's going to check this named goal, and if that named goal is equal to or greater than this value here, it is going to forward that response, that on response in this case. If it is not at least 1, if goal test 1 is not at least 1 when this gets an on response, it is not going to forward that on. So our effect in game is going to be when this is triggered, if this variable is at least 1, this vclip will happen. We'll see our little green plasma explosion. If, however, it is not, say it's 0 or less, this explosion is not going to happen. Now, let's set up some variables so that we can show you this working. So I'm just going to put a decal over here in the corner so we can identify clearly which one is which. You don't need to put a switch here for this. I'm just doing it because it'll make it a bit more obvious when I'm pressing buttons so that you can see it. I'll set this to 0.1 and press use key. Again, you don't need to do any of this. I'm just doing this because it's going to make showing you this, for example, a lot easier. So now we have 2 buttons here. Now for the first button here, with our happy face, we are going to increment our value by 1. So to do that, we're going to take a goal set event, go into the properties on it, goal to set, test goal 1, which is the only goal we're working with currently. And when goal set receives an on response, which is going to get from this trigger, as soon as I select the trigger, hit the goal set and hit K, this is going to send an on response when the trigger is triggered. with the use key, which is going to increment this value by 1. Now on the flip side, I'm going to, for this one, I'm going to invert a goal set event, which is going to be set to test goal 1. Select the trigger, select the invert, K, invert, goal set, K. Now, actually, before I explain that, let me just do this. In addition to setting the goals, I also want my trigger to go through my, my goal check so that the V-clip plays if the criteria is met. So I'm just going to select my 2 triggers, link them to this delay event here, which again, the delay event is linked to the goal check. So as an overview of what we are doing here, so that you'll be able to understand this better once we get it into game now in a second. So what's going on? This trigger right here, which is the positive one because the decal's up here, is sending a pulse to goal set, which is setting test goal 1. Well, it's adding 1. It's incrementing test goal 1. Test goal 1, which again was defined by this goal create event. On the flip side, down here, this trigger, when pressed, because it's going to invert before it goes to the goal set event, is going to decrement this value by 1. So this decrements, this increments. Then the triggers are going to go to this delay event, which is, they're going to send an on pulse to this delay event. Both of them are when I hit them. That delay event is going to send an on pulse to this goal check event. This goal check event is going to act as a gate. It's going to say, is the value of test goal 1 at least 1? If it is, play this V-clip, forward an on pulse to the play V-clip event. If it is not, it's just going to stop there. We're not going to see our V-clip. So let's test this. And I need to test G3, sure. Save and pack that. Play our level. Give my video a second to catch up. There we are. Okay, so come over here to our, again, this is our +1. So if I hit this, why is that not working? Did I mess something up? Okay, that's why. Be careful. Be careful when you do this that you make sure that you spell your stuff right. So I had everything set to test goal 1 except my goal check, which was set to goal test 1. So that's my mistake. Learning experience for you. Don't do that. All right, let's play this again. Now this should work. So press this. There you go. Our goal started at 0 because our goal set, or our goal create rather, told it to start at 0. I press this, it increments to 1, and then the V-clip plays because the value is a minimum of 1 when it gets to the goal check event. Press this again, now it's 2, still plays. Come over here, this is going to decrement it by 1 when I press this, which sets the value to 1 because it had been set to 2 previously, and then the check of at least 1 is met. Press this again, now it's set to 0, no V-clip. Now it's -1, now it's -2, now it's -3. Come back over here, +1, now it's -2, now it's -1, now it's 0, now it's 1. As you can see, it is now a minimum of 1, so this V-clip plays. Press again, minimum of 2, plays again, 1, plays, 0, doesn't play. So as you can see, goals are, at their very, very core, extremely simple, but they are extremely powerful because you can use these events and these variables to store a whole bunch of different kinds of information that is extremely useful when you're mapping in this game. Anyway, that is it for this section. In the next section, we're going to go over some specific use cases, some examples of why you might want to use goals, yeah, so I'll see you in the next section. Hope you learned something. Okay, so now that we know the basics of how goals work, let's move on to some examples. So for our very first example here, we're just going to create kind of a basic little 2-level sequence to emulate what you might see in a custom single-player campaign. Obviously, that would be a lot longer, but we're just going to do 2 very, very basic levels. We're going to have a clutter object in one of them. It's going to be a light bulb. Actually, I'm going to use a glow stick. And there's going to be a door in the next level, and when you walk up to that door in the second level, it is only going to open if you had previously broken the glow stick in the first level. So this will just kind of showcase a basic example of how goals can be used for basically objectives between levels in single-player maps. So let's just make our little area to make our map in. So for starters, I'm just going to make a basic room and a hallway, and we will make a doorway separating our room and our hallway. There's a portal on that because it's going to portal between the hallway and the room. There we go. And just because it annoys me when textures are like that, I'm going to apply everything. I'm also just going to apply some incredibly ugly texturing to these rooms, just so, because obviously the rooms are just all basic boxes, so that we can tell the difference between them. So it's going to be the ugliest map known to man, but that is perfectly fine. I am just very quickly going to save this as test01.rfl. Our second level is going to be test02.rfl. Now, let's go ahead and set up our glow stick. Actually, before we do that, let's set up our goal, which is going to control our objective. So I'm going to come over here to event, just like I did in the last section. Go here to, I always mess up the difference between level and modifiers. Go to level, goal create. Let's just name our goal, goal 1, start count 0 is perfectly fine. I am going to tick persistent because, again, I need to check the status of this in a future level. In this case, it's going to be the next level. I'm not saying there's going to be a level 10 levels from now, except that I don't have 10 levels in this example. So there you go. So our goal has been created. Now we are going to make our clutter object. What am I doing? Lights. Let's make a glow stick. Delete the light because we don't need that. Now, this isn't specifically the purpose of this tutorial, but I'm going to use a when dead event here, and just at a very basic level, the when dead event will send an on response to whatever it's linked to when a clutter object or entity or something like that that it's linked to as well dies. So in this case, I'm going to select my when dead event, control select my glow stick, press K. When dead event is going to be linked to the glow stick. So this is going to send an on response to whatever else I link it to when this glow stick dies. And of course, the thing that I'm going to link it to is going to be a goal set. Goal set is going to be goal 1. Select the when dead event, control select goal set, hit K. That will increment goal 1 whenever this glow stick dies. It will send an on pulse to this, which will increment goal 1. Because again, it's an on response, not an off response, because there's no invert in play here. Just going to save that. So now our goal create and our goal set are all set up. Let's go ahead and make our transition to our second level so that we can go into our second level and create our door. So let's just go through, and again, this is not specifically the point of this video, but I need to do it to show you. So I'm just going to make a trigger. When I made that trigger, actually, I pressed O to reorient to grid and rotationally, and then I pressed Control G to align to grid, just so you know. Set this to 0.01, whatever, good enough. Put that there, copy paste, put this over here. And again, this is just setting up a basic level transition between two levels. Load level from 01. It doesn't really matter what the script name is, you just can't have two load level events in the same map with the same script name. So I just label it from 01 because this is the trigger that is going to be going from level 01. This one here is going to be to 02. File name, test01.rfl, link this trigger to that event. This load level event is going to be 202, and it's going to be test02.rfl, link trigger to that event. And test02.rfl obviously doesn't exist yet. We're going to make that in just a second. So I will save this map, then I will go into group mode, and I will grab yeah, I'm just going to grab everything here. We're going to group this out, save our group. I'm just going to save it in multi, whatever, good enough. Now that our group is saved, I'm going to save this map. Make a new level, go to load, in my multi folder, 01 to 02. Here we go. I'm just going to move my map just so that my player start for this is in the transition where we're going to be entering level. Don't have to do that. It's just kind of a best practice. Now that we have that done, I am going to copy my hallway and my room. We are going to place that up here. And we are going to put our door right here. So to make our door, I'm going to copy and paste this, stretch that to 5, 3, and 3 so that it will fit in our doorway. I'm going to make that a solid detail. I'm going to go into group mode. I'm going to keyframe this. This is the basics of making a door. Not specifically the point of this tutorial, but I'll show it to you anyway. I did actually make another tutorial on doing specifically doors that I will link up in the top right-hand corner if you would like further explanation into what I'm doing right now. Just move that up there just so it moves out. Save this map as test02. There you go. If you're wondering why the door snapped down when I save it, it's because whenever you save your level, all brushes that are on movers reset to their starting position, which is this gold keyframe in here. They reset to this position. And then that should be all that's required for that. Now, time to make our trigger. Again, O, Control G. This is going to be the trigger that is going to open our door if the goal has been activated. If the goal has not been activated, it is not. I am going to set my trigger resets after to 0.1, just, actually, I'll set it to 0.01. It doesn't really matter what this is set to. And I am going to position that a little bit in front of the door so that the door will open as we walk up to it. Now we can do our goal check. Again, I'm going to be doing goal check for the goal 1, which was declared in the previous level. Minimum count of 1. So I only want this door to open if at the point that you walk through this trigger, goal 1 has a minimum value of 1. So it's not going to open if goal 1 has a value of 0 when you walk through this door, meaning in our case, the glow stick has not yet been destroyed. And then if goal check does equal a minimum of 1, I'm going to select my event, select my keyframe, and press K. So now we have an arrow. This trigger, when you walk into it, sends an on response to my goal check. If the goal check criteria is met, which is goal 1 is a minimum of 1, it will forward that on response to the keyframe. If not, it will stop it there. One more thing that I am going to do very quickly. I am going to stop this trigger from activating after the door is already opened. Basically, right now, what's going to happen when you walk into this trigger, and actually it's probably safer if I go in and actually do have that delay. What happens right now if you walk into this trigger and this criteria is met, this trigger is going to be constantly activated every 0.1 seconds because of the delay value here. And it's going to constantly be hitting this and hitting the door every 0.1 seconds. That's going to cause our door to jiggle up and down, which is not what we want. So, in addition to my door off of the goal check event, I'm also going to create a remove object event. Link my goal check to my remove object to my trigger. So the way that this is going to work is walk into the trigger. On response goes to goal check. This is an if statement. If goal check does, or if goal 1 is not at least 1, nothing will happen. It will just stop. If, however, goal 1 is at least 1, it will send an on response to the keyframe, opening my door. It will also send an on response to this remove object event, which will remove my trigger. So at that point, the door is permanently open and the trigger cannot be activated again because it is literally deleted. And that should be it for now. So I'm going to open up test 1 and we will play this in game. Why is this not, did I not make a pack file? There we go. Sorry, I forgot to make a pack file. Okay, so level 1 is loaded here. I'm just going to first show you what happens before the glow stick is blown up. So as you can see, I'm walking through my trigger here. Let's turn on debug trigger. You can see, here's my trigger. Walk through this trigger. Nothing happens because the glow stick has not been blown up, so goal 1 is not a minimum of 1. Walk back into this room. My glow stick is right here. If I instead blow up my glow stick, and then do this, as you can see, my door opens. And also, note that the outline of my trigger, which I turned on with debug trigger, is now gone. That is because the trigger has been removed by the remove object event that we made a second ago. And now that I destroyed the glow stick, I can walk up to this door opens, and I can proceed. You can probably imagine how this could be used in single-player campaigns. There's a lot of different use cases for it. Just as a very basic thing, you could have something where, a door in one area of a map only opens if you killed a specific enemy in a previous level. If you got to a specific area, pressed a specific button, all those kinds of things. There's a lot of power to just this basic setup. So I hope you can make some use of it. I will see you in the next example. All right, for our next example, welcome to L8S3, otherwise known as the third level of the CAPEC Medical Labs chapter of the stock campaign. This example is going to be very similar to our glow stick example from a second ago, but I did want to show you this because it showcases the way that Volition used goals in the original creation of the game, and thus, I presume, what goals were originally intended to be used for. This area in the stock game does have kind of like a rudimentary stealth system involving like bringing a sample from point A to point B, impersonating a doctor, all that kind of stuff. That uses a ton of goals. I don't want to go into absolutely every aspect of it because it's, to be honest, overly complex for what it is, and there's not a ton of value in going into each individual element. They're all mostly boiling down to the same thing. I do want to go over the ending of it, though, because it's a really, really, really simple and clear use case of how to use goals. So, let us play game from this position. Video, there we go. So first off, let us just kill this guard so he stops shooting at me. I'm going to turn on debug trigger so that I can show you this. So this trigger right here, is linked to a goal check event, and if the goal that I'm going to show you in a second is at least one, it enables this door trigger, allowing me to walk through with no problem. Obviously, I haven't done that yet because I haven't achieved the mission objective, so I cannot walk through this door. Now let's go look at the mission objective. And again, like I said, goals in other areas of the chapter will stop these guards from shooting at me, but I haven't done any of that. This guy here, there's a key card. Well, it's actually invisible at the moment. There's a key card on his desk. This key card is the objective. Basically, you're supposed to go into this guy's office, you're supposed to kill him, take his key card, and then his key card will get you through the door. So that trigger is currently disabled. If I kill this guy, the key card appears, the trigger is now enabled. I press this button, I get a key card. And then, go up here, get on my way. This same trigger, I walk through it. Now I can walk through the door. And that's because when I walk through this trigger this time, the goal has been set. I have picked up that key card, and now I can walk through this door. Now, let's show this in the editor. Like I said, a lot of goals for a whole bunch of other stuff here. You can basically ignore all of that. Let's just go over the two elements that we just looked at. Let's go to object mode. This is the trigger that we were looking at in-game a second ago. So, you walk through this trigger linked to goal check. Goal check is checking for a goal named sample 6, and if that has a minimum count of 1, as in it has been set once, it is going to enable this trigger. The reason that it does that is because this trigger is set to disabled currently, and in the engine, this, when you walk through this, is going to send an on response to goal check. Goal check is going to send an on response to this disabled trigger. If you send a on response to a disabled trigger, that flag is going to be removed. The trigger is going to become enabled. So that's what's going on here. So again, sample 6, minimum of 1. Now, let's see where sample 6 is being set. So I'm just going to go up here and kind of cheat a little bit here, press Control T to teleport my camera to sample 6. Sample 6 here is our goal create event. The start count, as you can see, is 0. Sample 6 is the script name, meaning sample 6 is the name of the goal that is being set. Volition ticked persistent for this one. I don't really know why they did that. It's completely unnecessary for this specific example, but yeah, I don't know. A lot of the other goals in this area were set to persistent. Maybe they just did it for this one without thinking much about it. If you're wondering why it's sample 6, by the way, samples 1 through 5 are used for the like pseudo rudimentary stealth mission that, again, I'm not going to go over all of, but if you're wondering why it's sample 6, that's why. Now, this key card here is linked to this trigger. This is a trigger that is used to set the goal for sample 6. As you can see, use key, required, it resets only once, which means it can only be activated one time, and it is currently set to disabled. Now, what enables this? So first off, we have our keycard soft crash protection. I guess that's because Volition wasn't confident in their own event system, so they put in a backup, which, if I remember correctly, yeah, after 240 seconds after you enter this room, it will just force everything onto you, because I guess they figured you messed something up. But anyway, we're going to ignore that. The other thing that this is linked to, or sorry, that links to this, is this when dead event here, this guy down here. As you remember from in-game, when we kill this admin male here, this admin male 2 entity, this trigger becomes enabled. That is because of this when dead event. For a very similar reason as our glow stick in the previous example, when this admin male 2 dies, this when dead event sends an on response to a whole lot of stuff, most of which you can ignore, but one of them is our trigger door here, which for the same reason as the door at the end of this level, when an on response comes to a disabled trigger, the trigger is enabled. So now, kill scientist, that enables this trigger, which is tied to the keycard, which is why you saw the keycard. Or not why you saw the keycard, but why the keycard little screen lit up green. The reason why you saw the keycard was because the when dead is also linked to an unhide event, which unhides the keycard. But anyway, this trigger, when you activate it, activates again a whole lot of stuff that is irrelevant for the purposes of this tutorial. The thing that is relevant is the goal set event right here. So trigger sends an on response to goal set, which sets sample 6, or increments sample 6 by 1. Sample 6 by default is set to 0 as per the goal create event. So when you do a goal set on it, it increments it by 1. It is then set to 1, which means that this goal check event up here, when it checks, if it's a minimum of 1, that criteria is met if you have picked up the keycard after you killed the scientist, meaning you can then walk through the door. Anyway, like I said, that's a pretty bare bones example. It's not that different from our glow stick example a second ago. I just wanted to show you an example from the stock game so you can see how Volition used this technology in the creation of their stock single player campaign on PS2 and PC. Anyway, I will see you in the next example. So for my last 3 examples, I just wanted to show you some things from my my prequel campaign, my custom campaign for the game called Kava, which I will put a link to download in the video description if you have not played it yet. But essentially, Kava is a full-length single-player campaign for the game. It's an add-on. It's a prequel to the main campaign. And yeah, you don't really need to know anything else about it to go through this tutorial, but there you go. This is one of the last levels of the campaign, and if you've played it, you know how this works. There are 4 of these hard drives that are scattered in these different data centers on different sides of the map. And the objective is that you need to gather all 4 hard drives before you get to the elevator over here to get to the last level. And this here is controlled using goals. So that's why I wanted to show it to you today. So we have our Kava hard drives here. There's one right there. There's one out here. There's one in here, right there, and the other one is over here in this data center. And each one of these is set up in a very similar way. So if you look at the setup here, the trigger that you go up to and press use on the hard drive, which is effectively a button, activates a whole bunch of stuff. First off, it removes the object that makes the hard drive go away, so it looks like you picked it up. It gives you... sorry, it doesn't actually give you anything. It goes up here to this goal set event, which sets the HDD goal that I will explain a bit more about in a second. It increments that by 1. And then there's a slight delay just to give the goal set event enough time before we check it. Then there is a goal check event that checks hard drive, or HDD, the goal, and sees it if it has a minimum count of 4. Because again, there are 4 hard drives in the level, and the sequence won't continue until you've gotten all 4. There are also a couple of additional things here that are linked off of the goal check event, like the alarm that goes off after you finish it and all that kind of stuff. I'm not too concerned with that right now. What I do want to show you is over here, this delay event right here, which kind of acts as a hub for all of the different hard drives. So like I just showed you with that one, this hard drive here has the same kind of thing. Remove object, goal set, delay to goal check, and the other ones have basically exactly the same thing. All the goal checks go into this delay event here, which is the central kind of hub for everything. This means that you have all 4 by the time this delay event is ticked, and this is the level progressing. So there's a whole lot of stuff that this is linked to. I'm not going to go through absolutely all of these. This nightmare mode, I'll talk about that in a second. I'm not going to go through absolutely all of these. However, the one that I will mention is if you come over here and you look at this delay event here, you can ignore that. That's just for a HUD message. If you look at this delay event right here, which again, you get all the hard drives. Once you get all 4, this delay event here is active, which then sends a on response to this delay event, which sends on responses to these 2 triggers. These 2 triggers are disabled currently. The on response coming from this delay event here, which happens after you got all 4 hard drives, activates these 2 triggers. So in effect, you gather all 4 hard drives, and as soon as you do, all this stuff activates, these triggers are activated, and you can proceed in the level. There's also an alarm going off while you're doing this, and you're being hunted down by a bunch of elites, but that's beside the point. You can finish the level through the elevator this way. So I just wanted to explain to you that simple example. It's very, very similar to the last example, where you press a button in the admin's office in the base campaign, except in this case, there are 4 different events. Sorry, 4 different buttons, and when you press all 4, this activates because the minimum count is set to 4. So that's that example. I will see you in the next Kava example. So for the second example from Kava, I wanted to show you how the secret tracking and the nightmare mode works in Kava. You may have noticed if you played through Kava and got all the secrets, or you completed it on nightmare mode, which I'm not sure a whole lot of people have, once you get to the end of the game, the cutscene at the very end of the game, which actually here I will just show you very quickly here. The cutscene at the very end of the game. As soon as my thing kicks in, there you go. So, actually couldn't really see it, but anyway, on the, this comes up here, on this screen right here, if you have completed the game in nightmare mode, or you have gotten all of the secrets before you finish it, these little labels here move up onto the screen, and you see a label saying that you completed the game on nightmare mode, or on or with all the secrets having been found. So I wanted to show you how those things work, and just kind of how nightmare mode and secrets are tracked throughout the campaign. So for starters, this keyframe here, which moves up the nightmare mode label, is coming off of a goal check, which is checking a goal named Nightmare, and is checking if it was 1. So basically, when you load the last level of the game, it does a check to see if Nightmare is a minimum of 1, and if it is, it shows that label. And this here is just coming off of the trigger auto, which starts when the game starts, or when the level starts, rather. So basically, game starts, goal check. If nightmare mode is equal to 1 or greater, it'll never be greater, but if it's equal to 1 or greater, it moves up the nightmare mode label. The secrets label is very similar. Right here, again, a goal check. This one is different, though, in that it looks for a minimum count of 16. There are 16 levels in this campaign, and so the way that this is set up, which I'll show you a bit of now in a second, is that within each level, it keeps track of its own secrets with a non-persistent goal, which, again, I will show you now in a minute. There is, however, a persistent goal that's initialized at the very first level of the campaign, which is incremented each time you get every secret in a given level. So, level 1, there's, I think, 3 different secrets. There's a secret counter that's going as long as you're playing level 1, which I will load up now here. But the entire time, it is also, or sorry, well, actually, hang on, let me just show you. So in the very first level, this is secrets being initialized. We'll deal with nightmare mode in a second. This is secrets being initialized here. So this is the goal create for the secrets goal. Starts at 0. It is persistent. It can be checked in future levels. In fact, it is checked 16 levels later in the final level of the game. This here is my setup for tracking them. So this is the goal set for secrets. So there is a setup very similar to this in every one of the levels, and I'll show you a couple in a second. And basically the way it works is that this blue event down here at the bottom is an on response is set to this every time the player gets a secret. Every time the player enters a secret area, be it these back here, this special one back here that I think a lot of people didn't find, or the other secret that's up here in the vent, they all send an on response to this goal set event down here, which increments secrets 00A. 00A is this specific map. This is a unique goal to this specific map. And in fact, this unique goal is set up right here. Secrets 00A is created. It is not persistent. There's one like this in every single one of the 16 levels in the game. They keep track of their goals independently. So when you get each secret, it goes to this goal set event. This goal set event is then linked to a goal check event. This goal check event, after secrets 00A is incremented by 1, checks if secrets 00A is at minimum 3. If it is, or sorry, if it's not at minimum 3, this is where it stops. It keeps doing that. It keeps keeping track of them every time you get a secret. If, however, you get here and this is 3, meaning you have found every one of the 3 secrets in this level, it then does a few things. It comes over here. What is this? Oh, this is the full screen image that just says that you've got all the secrets in the level. We can ignore that for right now. The other couple of things that it does is it remove objects, the goal set event. That's just so if there's something else in the map that happens to trigger this by accident, it's not going to cause any problems. That's just kind of a fail-safe for me. It's not really necessary. The important thing, however, is that when you hit the goal set event for secrets 00A, it sends an on response to goal check. This goal check for secrets 00A checks if it's a minimum of 3, and if it is, it sets secrets up by 1. It increments secrets. Again, secrets is the goal that is persistently tracked throughout the entire game. So if you do that on level 1, secrets is incremented by 1. 16 levels later, and I'll just load a couple of other levels very quickly just to show you. So this one right here, for example, where is it? It's right here. This is the water treatment level. So this here, same thing. There are some secrets in this map, and when you get them, they all link to goal set here, which goes to goal check. If secrets 05, in the case of this level, is a minimum of 3, because there are 3 secrets on this level, it will increment goal set by 1. And then like I showed you a second ago, at the end level of the campaign, if by the time you get there, I'll bring it up again just for sake of argument, when you get here, this goal check, which one was it? It was, yeah, this one right here. This goal check on level load, if secrets is a minimum of 16, meaning you have gotten every secret in every one of the individual levels, it displays the 100% secrets label at the end of the campaign here so that you can see that you've gotten all the secrets throughout. It's basically 100% run is what it boils down to. So that is the way that secrets are done in Kava, or at least the goals for secrets. I can get into the specifics of the, fanfare sound effect and that kind of stuff later, but at least the goal element of the secrets is done. Now, let's go back and look at Nightmare Mode, because this is a little different in the way that it works. So Nightmare Mode, if you don't know, spoilers, there's a switch back here, which has a Nightmare Mode label on it. There's a switch back here that you get to by destroying this light bulb here at the very first level of Kava. If you get in here, which is a secret in and of itself, you can hit the Nightmare Mode switch. If you hit the Nightmare Mode switch, a few things happen. A lot of things happen. You can basically ignore most of these things. Yeah, you can ignore almost all of these things, except the couple of important ones here. So the very first one here, goal create for Nightmare. This is the goal that, again, as I showed you a second ago, is checked in the last level of the campaign. It's persistent. It's tracked throughout the entire game. All 16 levels look for this goal, so it is persistently tracked throughout the whole game. Starts at 0, and if you hit this switch, delay, goal set, it is incremented by 1. So Nightmare Mode, or Nightmare Goal is initialized at the start of the campaign. If you hit this button, it is incremented by 1. At that point, for the rest of the campaign, each level does things based on whether you hit that Nightmare Mode switch at the start. So if I load up the second level of the campaign, for example, which is this big like Martian landscape level, there is a check at the start here. Just see, is it this one? You're dealing with so many events, it becomes a nightmare to keep track of them sometimes. Go check. Yeah, there we go. So at the point that you load into the level, at the point that you walk through this trigger at the very start of the level, there is a check done. There's a goal check for Nightmare. If Nightmare is at least 1, that means that you ticked the Nightmare mode, or you hit the Nightmare mode switch at the very start of the campaign. If that is the case, on response goes to this delay event, and a few things happen. As you can probably see here, there's a whole lot of stuff that gets unhidden. There are a lot of entities that are scattered throughout this level, mostly these rail driver elite guards. If you've played Nightmare mode, you know what I mean here. Mostly these rail driver elite guards that are only unhidden. They only effectively spawn if you go into this level on Nightmare mode. So you go into this level normally, they are all hidden, but if you go into this level with Nightmare mode on, they are all unhidden when you load this level, making the level a bit harder, which is what Nightmare mode's point is. To show you a couple others, this is the big like outside the big firefight level. I can't remember off the top of my head where these are. Let's just look. There's a lot of goal checks going on here. Let's go to one of the last ones. I think this is a Nightmare mode one. This is in fact a Nightmare mode one. So basically when this delay event here gets an on response, which is something to do with the countdown after you go into the warehouse. I can't remember exactly what triggers this, but anyway, on response goes to this delay event. Goal check checks the Nightmare mode goal here, if it is at least 1, which it will be if you have hit the Nightmare mode switch. It unhides an extra APC here. So you have an extra APC to fight if you play this level on Nightmare mode that you wouldn't if you just played it normally. And additionally, there's some other things like these couple of guards up here. If we look in here at this unhide event, same kind of thing. There is a goal check here, so when you activate this button here, as in you're going up to the roof to fight off everything here, if you've played Kava, you know what I mean, there is a delay event here, a goal check, which checks Nightmare to see if it has a minimum count of 1, and if it does, an on response goes to both of these. So first off, it removes a bunch of the health and armor that exists up here to help you, so that the fight is a lot harder because you have less resources, and it also unhides these 2 guards up here, which I believe from memory, one has a rail driver and one has a fusion. So as soon as you come up here, it makes it a lot harder for you. Anyway, that is the secrets tracking and the Nightmare mode tracking for Kava. I have another example from Kava that I want to show you in a second, but I'll end this section here, and I will see you in the next section. Okay, so getting to the last example of goals and the last example from Kava, I wanted to show you kind of a more maybe specialized use case. So far we've gone over how you can use goals for objectives, which is really what goals were intended for in the game. I, in Kava, used goals in another way, which I think is really, really useful to have and to know how it works for any single-player campaigns that you're working on, so I wanted to go through it. There are a number of things that can change in the game world that are not saved in the save game file, meaning that if you quick save in the middle of gameplay and then you load that quick save, the world is not going to look as you expect. As an example of that, I will show you. This is not actually the way that this works in Kava because I have a solution that I'm going to show you in a second, but I've removed the solution so that I can show you what it was like before. So as an example, the set liquid depth event will set, the depth of a liquid room. So if I come in here and press this button here, as you can see, the water level falls down, this door opens, there's a guard back here that shows up, and I can proceed in the campaign. The idea is that you're draining the water out of this chamber so you can pump it into another chamber. However, by default, I'm just going to restart this, there you go. By default, if I press this button, and then while the water is falling down, I save the game and load my game, the water is all the way back up to the top, which obviously is not ideal because it doesn't make any sense, but also you run into ugly bugs like this, which is laughably stupid. I really wasn't happy with the way that this worked in Kava, so I set out to find a solution, and the solution is what I'm going to show you. just to, before I actually show you exactly how to do it, let me show you how it looks in the released Kava game, which is what I'm going to be showing you. So you press this button. It's not 100% ideal, but at any point, if you save and then load while the water is going down, or after it has already reached the bottom, it will just automatically load down at the bottom. Unfortunately, I was not able to find a way for it to continue, basically pick up where it left off. But in most cases, this is perfectly fine. It was fine for my purpose anyway. All right, so let's go through how this works. So the first thing, I should just spend a couple of seconds explaining how the set liquid depth event works. So this is my liquid room. This here is my set liquid depth event. My liquid room is set to a depth of 23.5 meters. My set liquid depth event is configured so that over a period of 15 seconds, it will drain my liquid down, so it'll go from its original depth to a depth of 6.8 meters. And this happens when you press this button right here. So same thing we've been talking about all the time. This trigger is pressed, on response goes to set liquid depth, which starts the process of setting the liquid depth down. Now what I have done, because the progress of that event is not saved in the same save game file, and the new depth when it reaches the bottom is also not saved in the same save game file. So we need a workaround. So my workaround is right here. So I am using goals for this. So the way that this works is that when you press that button, in addition to kicking off the set liquid depth event and starting the process of draining it down, another thing happens. And that other thing is right here. This goal is set. So my goal is water 1. Doesn't really matter what you name this. I chose to name it water 1. It is not persistent, obviously, because that's unnecessary. Again, at the very, very start of this video, I said if you're tracking stuff in between loads, like save, quick load within one level, you do not need persistent. Persistent is only if you're loading it in a future level. So we are loading this in this specific level, or referencing it from this specific level, rather, so we do not need it to be persistent. So what's happening when that button is pressed is that in addition to triggering that set liquid depth event, it is goal setting, incrementing water 1 by 1. And at the same time, there's a trigger auto here, which happens when the level loads, which goes to a goal check event and checks water 1. So at the point that this level loads, if water 1 is at least 1, this happens. Set liquid depth with a time of 0.01 seconds, so within the span of 10 milliseconds, it will set that depth. So this has the effect that if you have already pressed this switch and the water is on its way down, and then you save load, quick save and quick load, when you load back in, the water is automatically going to be down at the level that it should be at, rather than the original level that is saved in the level file. One more thing I do need to mention here, because this messed me up for a long time. It's not specifically related to this, but you'll need it in order for it to work. I don't quite know why this is the case, but for some reason, most of the time, a trigger auto will only activate when the level loads for the very first time. When like you transition to this level from another level, or you directly start a game on this level. Obviously that's not what we want here for this. We want this to activate every time the level is loaded, even if that's from a save game file. So my workaround for that, I don't quite know why this works, but it does. If you just link your trigger auto to a delay as well, don't link that delay to anything, just link it to the delay. This will make this trigger auto and everything else that it's linked to happen every time the game loads on this map, even if it's from a save game file. So it is linked to a delay. It is also linked to a goal check. So the effect is that every time this map loads from a save game file or otherwise, this goal check event will be checked, and this set liquid depth event will trigger. And I did a very similar thing out in this area, which just load this. I will show you. And it is the same kind of thing, except this is 2 stages. So I press this button. This starts coming up, I then save load. It automatically jumps up to the second phase. That's a little interesting because the barrels are still trying to catch up. But the second phase is now set, and then as soon as it reaches the midpoint, here we go. Now the water is coming back up with me. If I save load at this point again, it's going to go up to the top phase. like I said, not ideal. I would like it if I could maintain the the gradual increase, but this is a lot better than having it so that if you save load in this map ever, because you were using the quick save function built into the game, the water reverts down to the bottom. So this is my workaround for that. I found that it works very well, and it can be used in other cases as well, not just for the Set Liquid Depth event. Any other in-game situations where when you load the game, the stuff that you did was not saved in the save game file, you could store it like this and do it on the level load via this same method. So I will leave you with that. That is, I believe, 5 examples now of how goals can be used, as well as an explanation at the very start of the core mechanics of how goals are used. If you have any questions, any concerns on any of this, feel free to drop by our Discord. There's a link at the bottom of this video. Myself and any of the other level designers in the community, I'm sure, would be more than happy to help walk you through whatever difficulties you're having. I hope that from this tutorial, as well as the additional tutorials that are being made, we're going to see some awesome new single-player levels, and I will be there to play every single one of them. Anyway, thank you for watching. Join our Discord if you are interested in that. I will see you next time.